Welcome back to Faith and Fire. Today, we're going to have a conversation about being unstoppable in our faith. As we've talked about in past episodes, I've shared a little bit about my faith journey and how I've been exploring new churches and really trying to find that next thing in my faith. And as I think about that, I think about some of my faith goals. And one of my faith goals is really to be unstoppable in my faith and really on fire with my passion for my faith. And so I wanted to sit down with a couple of folks and talk about what does it look like to be unstoppable in our faith and learn a little bit from two friends who are unstoppable in their own ways and have been unstoppable in their faith and see what it takes to be on that journey. So come on the journey with me as we talk with Rell and Richard. Welcome back, guys.
Hey, what to do?
Okay. So being unstoppable, and I think this conversation really came around, Richard, when I was thinking about you, and we've known each other for many years. And I originally met you back in the AMA church when we were both going to the same church. And I just remember you as a vibrant, bubbly force of nature. Like you had all of his energy. You were just that one that was out there. I mean, I remember Choices. Do you remember Choices?
Choosing how to overcome in Christ every day successfully.
You remember what it stands for. So your way, you remember Choices. And honestly, when I was talking in a past episode, that is one of the things that brought us to the AME church, which brought us to the church that my mom ended up then accepting the call in. And a lot of what brought me there was Choices. I remember coming one night with a friend to Choices, which was the young adult. It was a young adult ministry, right?
Youth ministry.
Youth ministry, because they're different.
Yeah.
And so I came because I was like, it sounds like a good time. Let's do this.
You were 12.
I was, you know all the details. You're way better at this than me.
You should tell this story.
I was just thinking that. But I remember coming and I remember having such a good time. I wanted to come back over and over. That's where I wanted to spend my Friday night. And then eventually I remember the other young people being like, why aren't you here on Sundays? And I'm like, why am I not here on Sundays? So I was like, Mom, we gotta be there on Sunday. And that really led to one thing, led to another. Now my mom's a presiding elder in the AME church, one of them. And so I look at that, and what I didn't know throughout all this amazing force that was standing at the front of the room, getting us hyped up, getting us engaged, getting us involved. You had your own personal journey that you were going through behind the scenes. Can you tell me a little bit about the journey that you were going through at that age and some of the challenges that you were overcoming to be unstoppable in your faith?
So not even behind the scenes, right? I would pray because I repetate, right? Which is like stuttering, right? Like I still do it. And so I'm the type of person, I was the person, I'd be praying and because I started to be like, wicka, like in the middle of my prayers, right? Because of that, right? And so it's a fascinating thing when God puts you in a space just in life, right? Where you're regarded for your words, right? And you've got a speech impediment, you know? And so not even talking about then, but even now to know that you're regarded for your words and you've got a speech impediment. So it would be this thing where the frustration would ultimately be if I'm reading and I get caught in it, because my brain is I've digested and thought about what I'm going to say up to a certain point. And then I hit a certain point where I'm not all the way sure what I'm going to say. And then I'll get stuck on that, right? And then people are saying the word. I'm like, no, I know how to read. I do. I know how to read better than you do. And I've known how to read my whole life better than you do right now. Right?
Yeah.
And so you have this frustration within that. But ultimately in that space, where I can say that whatever the obstacle was, and the obstacle is more than just a speech impediment. The obstacle has to do with and what we would share, what we could share is y'all don't realize this, but Jessica's hecka socially awkward if you haven't picked up on that yet. Right. And so to be dealing with that as an adolescent where you are in your life, you're trying to understand who you are, or who you are, but nobody else gets it. You're an alien in the space. Right. And you just but there's no ET. You can't phone home, right? But phoning home is actually talking to Jesus, so you can phone home all the time, right?
Oh, got it.
Jesus is the homie. We can kick it all the time. Throwback. Insider.
You know the song's playing in my head.
I said Jesus is the homie. And we be kicking it all the time. Shout out to Michael Moore.
Yes.
So, so many insider things. But anyways, so like that's the importance of the church.
Yeah.
Right? The importance of the church as a training ground where you got to be able to be yourself. And so you might have been this alien Monday through Friday, because we were super active on the weekends, right? But you might have been this alien Monday through Friday, but then you found this refuge in this space that was the church that said like come unto me, right? And then you like be in the space and everybody's watering you and pouring into you and like all of these things so that you had the opportunity to exist in your most authentic self, hopefully, right? Because churches can also be toxic, right? And like, damn that authenticity, right? But I'm saying like, but those gifts, you're able to cultivate them. And so that was a blessing that you and I had, right? Is that we got to be able to be ourselves in that space. If you couldn't be yourself anywhere else, you be yourself in that space. And that was encouraged and cultivated. So then when I enter back into the world, right, I know what it is to just be me.
Yeah.
Right. And since I know what it is to just be me, because I've been able to build these skills that all my other haters, right, are trying to shoot down, right? Like I've got the fuel, right? I've got the fuel for the fire of which like propels my faith.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was the beauty of the journey, right? Yeah. Was being able to be in that training ground. And so I tell people all the time now, I'm like, I am who I am because of the church.
Yeah.
Right? The institution, like I am who I am because of the institution of the church. Not just like, like my parents, and I'm talking too long, but my parents put me in good soil. Like I tell people, like my parents were good farmers because they put me in good soil where other people were able to water me, right? So that I could just grow, right? And so that's the question around like, how do we make sure that our young people or that our old people even are able to be in spaces that allow them to be their most authentic selves, get watered in, then they can go. And so then I can't be stopped.
So when I think about your story, one of the things that stands out to me most is you knew that you had a speech impediment, and I do not recall a moment when it stopped you from doing anything. You were always the one to volunteer to pray. You were always the one to volunteer to do things. And I really admired that about you. And kids can be cruel, right? So like, I remember you having to deal with sometimes kids talking about it or they don't know what it is, right? And I think you hit on it before, is people attribute it to your intelligence. You're like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's something else. But kids are just kids, right? How did you push past like what other people had to say? How did you push past, your own fears? Like I can tell you, I don't like to read aloud now. I can't imagine being a kid and saying, I don't care what they have to say. I don't care. I don't have fear. I'm going to do this anyways. Like, how was your faith bigger?
In the last conversation, we talked about love, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think about a conversation that I had after choir rehearsal one Saturday where, folks were, kids were being kids. And one of my other teenage friends came up to me and they're like, we should be able to get along because it's church and we should all just love each other. And so like, why spend all this energy having beef?
Yeah.
Right. That was literally it. Right. And then after that, like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, let's all be on one team. We're all on the same team. And so it's that like, I understood church for me was safe. Right. Nice. If no other place wasn't, because God was there. Right. Yeah. So I don't care. You could yell at me. You could laugh. You don't understand. You think, oh, why does he do so much? Right. Yeah. But church for me was safe because Jesus was there.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all that mattered. Because literally, so like what you don't know is when I joined church, right? Because when I came up from Tucson, I was active and like, so what, like to give context for people that don't understand, African Methodism is a connectional church, which just means that we're all connected, right? And since we're all connected, we do stuff globally together, right? And so we would have these conferences. And so we all knew each other from all over the place. And right. And so like when you come up from like a church in Tucson to a church in Phoenix, you already know everybody. And so when I got there and I joined the church, it's like, oh man, Richard's here. Shoot. Like, what's he about to do? Right. That's literally what they said. That's literally what like some of the more like super like powerful, like popular people said. Right. So like, that's what you're going up against, but God was there. So that's all that mattered, was that God was there. So it was safe for me because God was there. So as long as that's what I was doing, right, then that's all that mattered, right? And so everything else is going to flow in because I'm doing the work that God has for me to do. And like I told you in the previous episode, like my spirituality has always been Michael Phelps. It's always been water for me. So it wasn't like I needed this epiphany. It was like, no, I'm just doing what comes naturally to me. Right. Yeah. And so like, I wish I could be more complex about it or something like that. But it was literally like, no, this is the safe space for me. Mm-hmm. There's safe adults here. There's some safe kids here, but this is a safe place for me. And since it's safe for me, I can now be brave in the space. Right. And then this is all I know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And I do want to like just your Michael Phelps reference was that you, your spirituality was like water and you were like Michael Phelps and that you just naturally gravitated towards that. Like you were just at home in your spirituality.
So you think about the fact that like what they talk about is that Michael Phelps is like his physical composition makes it where he can't help but be a good swimmer. Like the way his feet are, his arms are like a certain length, like all of these various pieces around him, like he's genetically engineered to do it. Right. Yeah. So it's not just like, oh, I'm a good swimmer. It's like, no, you were going to be a good swimmer. Right. Like I'm going to put you in water and it's going to be natural for you. And so like the Black church was always like this natural space for me because I'm not a small personality. Mm-hmm. Right. Like I've got big presence. Right. And so I was going to swim in that space. Right. But it was because I felt safe enough to do it. And so I think about this in terms of like as a father, like my son Malachi, like he experiences a large level of adversity in the school setting because they don't understand his alien. They not ET, right? So they don't understand it. They ain't no Mac and me like, wow. There's none of that, right? They don't get it. But then like I find myself at times watching his joy as he worships, mm-hmm. right? And I think to myself, I wish his teachers could see him in this space. Yeah. Right? Because then they'd understand it better because he's safe here. And so he feels safe enough to just be himself. And then he can operate in his infinite capacity for greatness that God planted in him, that it's our job to water and not kill.
Ooh, okay.
Deep.
So I want to dive into that more for sure. But first, Rell, I really want to talk to you as you're hearing this. I mean, have you experienced similar situations where you've had to overcome obstacles and being unstoppable in your faith?
Yes. Mine's hit home at the adolescent stage as well. So growing up, originally from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised, I came out here in 2019, but growing up in Chicago, I grew up in an area where it was called the Robert Taylor Projects. And in that situation, I grew up in the mindset where a lot of hope was stripped away. Ooh. And when I talk about stripped away, you know, when you think about going inside of a school structure, you know, you have your things like art and you have music, those things are stripped away because, hey, guess what? We didn't need that in that environment. Well, we just want to focus on what we need or what we can't afford. So for me, I wasn't the traditional book smart kid. Mm-hmm. So for me, anyone that knows me, that knows that I love art. Art is life to me. One of the most powerful quotes that I can recollect is, art is knowing which mistakes in life that you have, but creativity is knowing which mistake that you keep. So in order to do that, that was the sound piece of my life growing up. I didn't care about books. I didn't care about math. I didn't care about English. Art was life for me. 6th grade was critical for me because I was a huge introvert. But 6th grade was a pivotal point for me because, again, it was a teacher that confronted me that said, you might as well just drop out. You're never going to amount to anything in life.
To your face?
To my face. And I struggled with that mindset of saying, what did I do to have this conversation? And it was because I didn't understand a question and trying to ask an authority figure that's placed in the institution to help me, and you shut me down. So that's one. We'll put a pin in that.
Okay.
Fast forward, I get into high school. Now, my amazing older sister. So again, I come from a family of 7, second oldest.
Wow.
My sister, very book smart. Having already graduated, now into my junior year, my guidance counselor, it's time to sit down and settle for college and such. You got to pick a school. That's the prime mecca for everyone. They're like, man, I can't wait to pick the school that I'm going to go to. My guidance counselor looks at my scores, my testing. You're just a little average. You're not your sister. Why would you even want to go to a college? You're just going to waste your time. You might as well just pick up a trade or just do nothing with life.
And they said that again, they said this out loud?
This is out loud. Those two things were the starting force for myself to recognize that other people will be placed in your life and they will try to define what you do without you knowing how you're going to make an impact. Mm-hmm. Fast forward in life, I became unstoppable because the core thing of who I was my art. Art was life for me. And ways that I found it is by helping, mentoring others in the sense of what's your creative thumbprint? What's your artistic identity? Because as you represent yourself, can't nobody represent you better than you. Under the faith and the love and the determination of God, how he provides for you, it's time to show up. And everything that I've been deep rooted in is being cemented in what I do in education, as well as mentoring, as well as giving back into an artistic platform of working with youth. So my current organization, my current day-to-day 9 to 5 is actually in education technology. One of the pieces there is I'm helping identify how we build pedagogical tools working for K through 12 grades. So for anyone that's going through supplemental needs, intervention needs, initial recovery, credit recovery, anything around the ELA, special needs, science, language arts, math, all of those things. But I get to do that by means of design. I worked with a lot of different corporations, and design has been my background. My last boss at my previous company was, you'll never be a leader. No one will recognize you in the space that you're in, and I just can't see that being you. This is in 2022. It's like, wow, you can't see my greatness, huh? Maybe this isn't the organization for me. So I left the fintech company and joined education technology company. Now everyone recognizes my greatness and what impact that I make. It's a common joke to say that, Rell, you were introvert? You were shy? You didn't know what to say? I too struggled with having speech problems because I became a product of my environment. I didn't know what to say. I joined the groups like Toastmasters. I understood the logistics and how to educate myself or what to say when I'm inside of a room. That didn't mean I was ready. I wasn't ready to be a leader, but again, still unstoppable. Being married for 19 years, I thought I've hit my pinnacle of saying like, man, I'll never experience this again. I'll never have a doubt or naysayer. But I just recently went through a divorce. But to have my significant other to say all these amazing things that you've done in life, at the pit of my stomach, I don't feel it was meant for you. I don't feel like you deserve that.
How do you keep running into all these people who have the gall to say these things out loud?
Exactly. And each and every time I had to pray. I had to pray for resistance. And every time I had to just keep showing up because I had to go against the grain of everything that I knew. And anger was what I knew, and I can do anger very well. But I had to do something different. I had to do something that resonated within my kids. I had to do something that resonated resonated within my community, something that resonated within everyone that I touched. I said this before, it's the difference between a candle and a lighthouse. A candle, you're only going to shine around yourself, but that lighthouse, you're going to be a beacon for all. So as I started to understand how I'm being utilized in each and every time that I show up, I started to see the people at first that I put above myself that should have been God first, I placed in other individuals. And each time those individuals let me down. So I started to see the factors in life, how I was being placed with. So I had to switch gears. I had to make sure that, hey, as I go forth, it's only one person in that driver's seat first. And by all means, I put my faith in God. And ironically, the moment I allowed that to happen, more blessings showed up. More resistance was actually having to be pulled off. And I can show up unapologetically me, being authentic in any capacity. And that was one of the things where, for me, I became unstoppable because I had so many people that tried to stop or derail me along my journey.
I'm not going to acknowledge the pun. Wow. Oh my gosh. And it's so interesting because I'm contrasting your stories in my head but then I'm seeing where they come together with God and having that safe space, that presence, God as the head, God as that anchoring point that really anchored you from the beginning because spirituality was like water for you. And I hear you saying like, maybe it was misplaced a little bit in the beginning, but when you kind of put God at the center, that's when everything just fell away. And all of these people who wildly felt the need to tell you their opinion on God's calling for your life, fell by the wayside.
But that's how toxicity works. And from the mindset, and I have to shift gears a little bit because I almost found myself adopting a victim mindset because it was like, oh man, well, I deserve this because of this. Or, maybe this person is saying that because of that. I'm lacking something. But it kind of goes back to what I said originally. No one can define what you do besides you. That conversation, and again, I thought I had to collect call God, but we already had a free line.
Right.
So those are the things where I had to identify, taking a step back, where is my faith? And if I do have faith, where is it planted? So again, becomes deep rooted in who I am and what God allowed me to be and recognize my own greatness.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where any place or any organizations that I've encountered, that I've mentored, any student, any person, that's a place that I hit home with. I said, understand the greatness that's in you. Because again, it all starts from a simple conversation, actively listening. As you engage in an individual and you start to understand their worth, and then you can start to understand their greatness.
One of the things that we have to understand is that poison only works if it's ingested, right?
Ooh.
Like whether it's ingested, whether it's placed on you, whatever it is, like poisons and toxins only work when you take them in. And so that means it has to be close enough to you for you to do that, right? I can't breathe in something from 1,000,000 miles away, right? It's got to be all up in here for me to be able to breathe it in,
Yeah.
right? And so then like there will be things placed around you that are meant to stop you, right? And so it's only when you recognize like the safe space has to be you.
Yes.
Right? You've got to be able to find that safe space to be able to be brave within you so that it's the God that's literally in you that you're able to tap into. Because please believe, again, you think about in your own socially awkward journey, the toxic spaces that you were in, that you had to still power through and swim through, right? That it would have been easy for you to crumble, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to be able to be fortified internally through what is empowering you through God to be able to still get through it. So whether God is my gas mask so that I can breathe in, right, Like I can breathe in God's essence when I'm in these toxic spaces. So I'm not breathing in the toxicity that my enemies have placed around me, right? Like, because when I would do good, trouble is all around me, right? That's the piece that I got to understand. Like, it's all around me, not far away, right? He prepares the table before me in the presence of my enemies. They're all close to me, right? We're eating, like we're breaking bread together. This is an intimate experience.
Yeah.
So the people that I'm supposed to be sharing intimacy with are ultimately in some way plotting against me because they're rooted in their own interest.
Yeah.
So if I'm dependent more on them than I am on God, right, then that's where I get messed up.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's going to be a t-shirt. Jesus be a gas mask. Like, I feel it in my soul.
Shout out Jennifer Jasper. She probably
Jennifer
making it right now.
Oh, she could make the shirt. Yeah, she could make the shirt. It would kill. It would
and
eat.
be petty at the same time.
It would eat.
Yes. That's good.
I know. I've been learning Gen Z phrases.
Look at you.
I feel so proud of myself.
Right. You're not hungry. You're about to eat.
Yes.
That's what Toby said. That's what Toby. Yeah, he said.
Toby who?
We'll
talk about it later. But it's interesting, and I feel like you keep seeding socially awkward because before this conversation, I was like, I don't know what my obstacle that I'm trying to overcome. So Richard been trying to like spoon feed it to me through ever. I am socially awkward. I am a little socially awkward, and a little, and I am an introvert, and I don't really like to be in the limelight. I don't like to be out front. I'm not the one. I have a podcast, and I think that's kind of where I'm seeing this come full circle, right? I don't like to be in the limelight. I am a little socially awkward. I never say the right things. And yet I'm in a space where, when I pray on it, I get these topics and I end up bringing together people who say the right things, who change lives and transform. And I can only do that by allowing myself to be in the spotlight. Like it's such a contrast to your story where you just naturally were like raising your hand and like, I'll do it. I'll volunteer. And you felt super comfortable. And I'm like, I don't know, but I'll do it anyways. Is I feel like more the headline for me. People would ask me like, are you ready? I'd be like, no, but let's do this. Because I guess I really don't know how else to affect change, to touch lives, to live in the spiritual journey that I've been called to be in, other than to say, I don't know, but I'll do it anyways. I don't know if this is going to come out right. I don't know if I'm going to have the right words, but I'm going to talk anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like both of your journeys in the sense of just showing up. It's allowed you to be organic in your presence. And being authentically you, it's like, let's equate it to a muscle. No one just comes out strong, right? You got to build it over time. As you build and you keep conditioning yourself, you get used to that. So if it's being socially awkward, if it's having a speech impediment, as you naturally just keep going over and over, that it becomes almost like an allergy, that you're no longer allergic to that particular thing because you already been ingested with that to the point where now it's become inculcated inside of you. Now with that, having that badge of honor of who you are, yeah, okay, I'm socially awkward. Now what?
Right.
Yeah. Like I think about it too, Jessica, though, like I didn't have a choice, right? There was no other option because not being myself in that space, like what reality was for me was too painful, right? I'm just being honest. Like my day-to-day reality in the world outside of church was largely too painful, too lonely, too all these other things to not be myself. So I had to as soon as I hit the water, I had to swim.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm also not trying to stay in that water in that regard. Right. So I'm like, I got to get through this moment. So the only thing I can do is be myself. And if myself is big, then I'm gonna just be myself, because like retreating into the vastness of like what was like this world that really doesn't understand you at all. Like, nah, that wasn't going to be an option, because like really that was death, just to be real. Like if I'm not going to be myself in this space, right. And I'm going to sink into what everybody's saying about me, what everybody's thinking about me, what everybody's like, how everybody's treating me, like that person checks out, right. Like I don't make it here. Like that person checks out. So I had to like just be me in this space.
Yeah, I like that. Similar to that, I use my outlet was art. So anytime that I would mentally disconnect from everyone that kind of shut me down in a sense, it was just easy. I would just put my head in my papers and my notebook papers that was supposed to go to school. And I know I used to constantly apologize, Mom. I used to get often in trouble because the first day of school, I wasn't thinking about like, man, I can't wait to go back to school. I'm finna get the fresh kicks. I'm finna wear the fresh threads or anything. I just wanted that notebook paper. Because if I get that 250 sheets, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm finna make this comic book. And for the first 3 hours, I went through 250 sheets of paper. And I had nothing to show for like the rest of the week because I used all of my sheets up. But each and every time that I had a moment, I would reflect into, I disconnected from the world because for my art, I created my own world.
Yeah.
And when I created my own world, I created my own mindset. And creating that mindset is, why do I have to adapt to what others want me to be when I am who I want to be? Now I need to reset myself and allow others to come to my canvas. I allow others into my world and my space. And that's the mindset that I had to adopt going forward, even into my adulthood. It wasn't no more that I had to like be the person that walk in the room like, hey, this is me. I'm Rell. Everyone see me. No, it's I can be who I needed to be in the room. And it's like, hey, do you know Rell? Rell does this. Rell was able to do that. And I let my work speak for me. My actions started to define me. And then I had to get in front of those actions to make sure it was the right things that represented me and not the wrong things. So when people close to the vest became close to me and started to kind of mislead my faith in a sense, oh, all that hard work you did, you don't deserve that. I just feel like you did a lot of bad things in life. You don't deserve those promotions. You don't deserve those rich blessings. But why? So I had to remove those distractions and remember who I am and disconnect and reconnect myself. The world is my canvas. However I paint that picture is up to me.
The only way you get to paint additional pictures is by painting the pictures on the canvas that's in front of you, right? And so, like, you think about, like, you were hungry for that paper, right? Eating is to go ahead and draw the comic book, right? And so God gives you more the more you go through it. But otherwise, if you're not using the 250 pages, God's not giving you 500. God's not giving you the 1,500 page book because you're not doing anything with it, right? And so, like, really understanding when it comes to connecting yourself to your purpose, like, if we're really talking about what it is to be unstoppable, that's what it is. It's like pursuing your purpose. It's being hungry for your purpose and then eating whatever it is that's put on your plate. Because I can't get to lunch if I'm still looking at breakfast, right? Like, you think about, like, your grandmama wouldn't let you get up from the table until you ate whatever was on the plate, right?
Yeah.
And so God's like, I put it on the plate for you. Right. And you're like, okay, well, I'm trying to get to lunch. Yeah, well, eat this. Like, I'm putting you through this particular experience because I need you to eat this because this is the fuel that's going to get you through so that you can get to lunch, so that you can get to dinner when it comes to whatever that is in your life. Right. And so, like, that's ultimately what the pursuit of purpose really looks like. Right. Is acknowledging, like, what's that North Star for you? What is it that God is calling you to do? What is the thing that is that nobody else understands? Because everybody else is saying, well, you're at school, you're supposed to be doing reading, writing, and arithmetic. And you're like, actually, no, like, yes, I'm in your educational institution of learning, but really what I'm supposed to be doing is I'm supposed to be like, if you could see all the things that I'm doing in these 250 pages, you'd be like, there's a whole curriculum in there, right? But I don't know that if I'm not given the opportunity to pour out. And sometimes you've got to push through whatever the institutional like confines are and what the institutional rules of the space are around. This is what we do in this space, right? Because this is, you know, whatever the grandiose is of those particular places. We don't do that here, right? Well, I'm here and we do that now because I'm here.
Exactly.
Right? And you've got to be willing to say that and to know that you've been placed into this space for a time such as this to do what your purpose has fueled you to do, to go on and go forward, but you won't do it if you're too busy just being like, well, these are the rules of the space. No, God put you in the space to break the rules.
Yeah.
I like where you're going with that. One way is to is break the traditional mindset.
Break the mold. Yeah.
You have to break that. One way that I look at it is not just being committed or dedicated to it. For me, I had to become obsessed with me. When you become obsessed with yourself and you become selfish, when you've been selfless for so long, you understand how you're going to be really utilizing the atmosphere of what you see your purpose is being used as, because you be a conduit to others. Because again, it's not just saying that, okay, well, I have empathy for that. Well, empathy is just thinking about something. It's compassion. I'm going to act upon it. But for yourself is, well, I got to be obsessed with me because I got to wake up and I got to do this thing each and every day. And guess what? I may even fail, but I'm going to do it again because I'm that much obsessed with who I am and the purpose of what I'm doing, so that I know that this is what makes me unstoppable, because this is the purpose that God has allowed me to be in.
Yeah, it's so funny because as you were talking, what was coming to me was like, okay, so what I'm hearing is you really have to fall in love with who God has created you to be and the journey that he has for you to be on. And I swear that's what y'all just said. You said you got to fall in love with yourself and who God created you to be. And I feel like in your own words, right? In your own way. And I heard you say you have to fall in love with the journey that God has you on, like your purpose, right? And so I'm like, man, that's how you overcome those obstacles, is you fully embrace, this is who God made me as. He has me show up this way for a reason. There's something that I'm called to do with the gifts that he gave me. And he wouldn't have formed me like this if this wasn't helping to serve my purpose. And then you fall in love with that journey that he has you on and that purpose that he's pulled you out and set you apart for.
Yeah. Like, not to be super spiritual, right? But like Bible says, while you were yet in your mother's womb, I knew you, right? And so like when I take that and then I think about David, right? David was trifling as all get out.
Wait, which
right?
David? Like the little one with the stone and the Goliath?
Yeah.
Who would grow up.
Yeah. David grew up and David was a whole.
What's David doing?
Rolling stone.
Like David was the epitome of being righteous and ratchet, right? And so when we consider the fact that like
bad and bougie,
like David was all of that, and if you want to know about it, read the book. So
which book is that?
The Bible.
No, I know, but which one in the Bible? There's lots of chapters.
I'm saying, but like if you read David's entire story, right? When you go across David's story, it spans across. So read the book, right? Take a look. It's in a book.
It's not
Reading
just in
Rainbow,
David. You
right?
just can't.
I was like, I don't know the book of David.
No, because there isn't one, because he's all over it. But I'm saying, when you understand that David was an adulterer, David was a hoe, right? When you understand like all of those pieces, David was an adulterer, David was a hoe, David was trifling, David was a liar. Like David did a lot of stuff that was whack, right? But it says that David was a man after God's own heart. So when I understand that, that's like, wait, so all of my imperfections, all of the things that the world would say, oh, you're this, you're that, you're all of these things, you can't be like, you're wasting my time in my classroom. You're not worthy of love. You're not worthy. Like, you would never be a good father. You never be a good mother. Like, you can't be a leader in this space. Like all of these things that the world doesn't say, but God's like, but I knew you. Like, I knew you when you was just swimming, right? Like, I knew you, right? And when that's the case, when I recognize that and I connect that to my purpose, I'm like, oh, I'm here for a reason, right? So God, like, let me swim, right? Because I just like, let me swim, like, let me hit this water and just swim, and like, and swim through every obstacle that gets put in my way, because I know that I'm supposed to press toward the mark. And if I'm supposed to press toward the mark, like that means I don't stop. I never stop. Right. There's no satisfaction in there's like celebrate the landmarks along the way. Right. But it's like, no, like I keep pressing, because until I go home, as long as I wake up every day, that means, oh, there's still work to do. Right. And if I ain't gone home yet, then I'm like, oh, what God, what do you have for me to do today?
Wow. I love this. So if somebody is in the place where they're not feeling unstoppable today, right? They're feeling very much stopped, and especially when it comes to their faith and finding their purpose and what they're up to in life. If we dig into our own respective experiences, what word of advice could we pull out to give someone who's looking for a way to become unstoppable?
I'll let you go.
I would just say you have to pray. Pray, then pray again. Wait for your answer. You're still not going to find it because you still got to pray. It's in the moment of silence, and I said this before, where you find your true answer because you removed yourself from the distractions around you.
Wow.
So if you're feeling like you're not enough, that's where you got to stop it, right? You've got to be able to, you've got to quiet yourself, right? To be able to tell yourself, I am enough. I am worthy, right? That I can do great things, that I am unstoppable. Like that's part of it. It's the I am component of that, right? To be able to silence even like the greatest enemy is the enemy, right? And we can look across so so many different faiths where they talk about like the true, like the greatest prison is the prison of self, right? Even like from the Islamic faith standpoint, like jihad is really the war within self, right? So like you can't beat yourself unless you've connected yourself to God and begun to silence out everything else. You've got to silence everything else out and just remember, like, I am enough. And if you can hold on to that when everybody else is saying that you're not, no, I am enough. God made me. I am enough. And the same God that created the Grand Canyon, that created the stars that we marvel at, that created the oceans and the seas and all of these things. We're like, ooh, like that we're on Instagram. We're like, ooh, that's pretty. I want to go there. The same God, the same force that made you. And that God doesn't make junk. So if that God doesn't make junk, that means you're a treasure.
Yeah. One thing to also reflect in, people have bad moments. Mm-hmm. A day is just a day, regardless of however it is. The existential vacuum of oppression, it's real. But at the end of the day of who you are, your DNA, everyone has a choice. You have a choice to say, am I going to wake up happy or am I going to wake up bitter? So allowing yourself to be in a sunken place to say, like, I don't know if I can do this. You already done it. You just mentally didn't allow yourself to be there. So having those affirmations that you tell yourself, I am worthy, I am abundant, I am light. More importantly, I am loved. Having all of that reassured to yourself, from yourself, the moment we speak it is a power when you vocalize it externally. Not just think about it. You have to physically scream it out to start to believe the words that are coming out of your mouth because it's more impactful.
Yeah, so like scripturally, death and life in the power of the tongue, and those that love it shall eat of its fruit, right? And that's like literally like understanding that. So when he's talking about, when Brother Russ talking about, like, you've got to scream it out. So if you look up so like if we're talking about something tangible, so Google messages and water, right? And it's going to bring up the work of Dr. Matsuro Emoto. And what he talked about in that was they would say phrases to water and then they'd freeze the water molecules, take a picture of it. And what you would find is that when you would say things like, and you can try this, right? You try this right now, that if you say things like, I hate you, like you feel it. Right? Like those pictures, those molecules were malshapen and like ill-formed. When you say things like, I love you, you're beautiful, like good things to the water, right? Those water molecules were literally beautiful, right? It's research. And so when you think about the fact that you are 2/3 water, the words that you say to yourself, the words you allow to be said to you, the words you say to other people literally transform the physical construction of how people exist. It literally, you are transforming things. So when you are saying to yourself in the morning, like, I love you, right? Your body is receiving that. Like you are literally, like the first relationship you have is a relationship with self, right? Like you are having a love relationship with yourself before anybody else does. So just like when you're dating, you want to hear good things from other people, you got to say those things to yourself. And if you're not saying those things to yourself, haven't even created a channel for you to be able to hear that from other folks. But like understanding that you're literally the way that you are constructed, and like from your body, like the words that you say and put on yourself and everything else, like it's affecting you. And so like when we talk about death and life and the power of the tongue, like your body needs to hear that affirmation. And you got to give yourself that affirmation before you wait to receive it from anybody else.
Yes.
Yeah. An important piece of what that whole affirmation is, knowing that when you go through those moments and you're going through that storm, change the mindset. That storm is given to you for a reason. It's for you to navigate it. God gave you that challenge to say, hey, you got more in the tank. I want to challenge that. I want to help you become a better you, because how do you know the best day ever if you never had the worst day ever? How do you know happiness if you've never been sad? So it's the contrast in life. Every yin has a yang. So understanding your purpose and how impactful you can be, change your mindset, become your own unstoppable piece. Because again, it's how you allow your life and your hope resonate within you that you can make an impact.
Oh my goodness. First of all, y'all some powerful speakers. She's speaking life into this conversation. As I think about my journey and what's helping me to become more unstoppable or help trying to reach my faith goal of being unstoppable in my faith, I think what resonates with my soul is just what I'm up to has to be bigger than my fear. And the funny thing is, it's not a fear of public speaking. I actually may be one of the few people on earth that loves to speak in person, in public. Yeah. Yes. It really has more to do with being authentic in a large space of people, being known in a space. I mean, anyone who's listened to more than a couple episodes knows quite a bit about me, because we get deep, we get authentic, we get real, we get vulnerable in these conversations. And I mean, even in this episode here, I was very transparent about, we're clear. Y'all both know the Bible better than I know the Bible. And that's okay. Being transparent in my faith journey is a scary thing. I think there's a lot of expectations on a preacher's daughter and definitely a presiding elder's daughter to show up a certain way. And then I was raised with a level of excellence. So then there was already that I'm my own worst enemy.
We've had that conversation.
Yeah. I have to show up a certain way as well. And so that's really where the fear comes from, right? Is being authentic. And I went through this journey over the last year of just being able to show people my imperfections, not just my imperfections in life, my imperfections in faith. And by showing people on this large platform my imperfections in faith, guess what? I've grown my faith tremendously. I've gotten to have so many conversations on faith and explore parts of my faith I didn't understand. I come into these conversations with questions I didn't know I had. And I was like, I don't know where this is going to go, but here's what I'm feeling in my spirit. And then we start having the conversation and I'm like, oh goodness, that's what God had for us in this conversation. And trusting that it's okay that my faith is not perfect, that I have a heart for God, and that I'm truly seeking him in these conversations, and also trying to share him, trying to shine my light. And trusting that and letting that be bigger than my fear of not being perfect, and my fear of people seeing that I'm not perfect. My faith has to be bigger than my fear. So if I were to give somebody a piece of advice, it would be, let your fear be smaller than whatever you're up to. If you're touching lives, if you're trying to believe in something new, if you're trying to find your faith, don't let fear stop you. What you're up to, your purpose is bigger than what wants to stand in your way. So I think that's a lesson from my journey.
Yeah, I like that. I think like you even have to think about it in terms of like, what are you allowing to be poured in around you?
Yeah.
Right. And so like, as you're on that journey, I think about this because I got a new car about 6 months ago, right? And I went from a regular car to a car that has greater expectations on me, right? And when I got that vehicle, like it had said, like when I opened up the gas tank thing, it said like you could only put premium or super premium. I didn't even know what super premium was. You only put premium or super premium in the tank, right? And so I was like, oh, okay, like so I'm okay, right? So now I've got greater expectations because of this vehicle, right? I got to put the super. I know I don't have no super premium because I don't even know where to find that. But the premium gas,
you scared me.
Put that in my
tank.
tank. Yeah. So I put the premium gas in the tank, and then as I was pouring into the tank, there's also now this tank was larger than my tank that I had before. So it just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going, and I was like, okay. So then there's a greater cost with it, but at the same time, like what's important is if I want this thing to go, I've got to have the right gas in it, right? And what will happen is we'll put the people around us that are just regular unleaded. And this isn't about like the financial space that they're in, right? Like it's really about how authentic are they? Because the higher the number is really about the fewer impurities in the fuel. And so can you get into a space where the people that are pouring into your tank, where the things that are pouring into your tank are that premium and super premium so that you can just go, right? Where the things that, because you used to be poured into by people that were close to you, that you thought loved you, that you expected it, but they were pouring bad things into your tank. And so then I've got to be able to be in a space where I recognize like, no. You can't go into this because this vehicle's got to go, right? There's things I got to do if I want to be unstoppable. So I've got to have authenticity around me at all times. So the only people that get close enough are those that we can be authentic, that we can be true, that we can be real with each other, that I can express my pain, that I can express where you were talking about being okay with being imperfect, right? That I can really talk about those pieces with. The ugly stuff that I don't want everybody to know, like these are the things that we can talk about. And if we can't be in that space, can't have you be close enough to pour into the tank.
I love the fact that you just made me feel comfortable that I too have to put premium in my car.
Yes, sir.
Because I was like, I don't know about these prices, but I know my car needs to go.
Yes, it does.
But just like life, we need that premium aspect of the quality of people that we surround ourselves with. So I love that.
I love your problems. Like these are great problems to have. Maybe try the green handle.
Nah.
That's
the
not
green
the
handle
super
doesn't work. No,
not going that route.
No, not going that route.
Okay. My car is fine with the trash gas. So I don't have that problem yet. Maybe one day. Oh my gosh. Y'all, this has been a great conversation.
This has been an amazing one.
Always great to be with y'all.
And so thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciated having you and your insights and your words of wisdom. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you for joining us. Appreciate you joining us for another conversation. Lean in, join us, comment, like, share the episode with someone who needs to hear this message about how to be unstoppable. I can't wait to hear the many ways this is going to touch your life and how God is going to change and move things out of your way so that your purpose can shine through. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode on Faith and Fire.